Welcome again, everyone, to the Cox Campus 23-24 year-long journey. This is our Knowledge Building for Leaders session, and the focus today will be systematic and explicit phonics instruction. And we're going to start with a roll call activity. Excellent. We would like you to go to the chat or go to your area where your profile is and rename yourself. If you can put your district, your role name, that will be great, and that'll let us know who's in the room. So if you can go ahead and change your profile to have your district and your role name, that will be great. And your name, and we will be getting started in just a few. All right, in the chat, if you can let us know where you're joining from and what describes your role. So you can do it in the chat or in the profile. Great. I see it popping up now. Thank you. Wonderful, wonderful. Welcome. I see several districts, Madison, Georgia. Ooh, it's popping so quickly. Dawson County, Washington County, Coffee County, Coweta. Oh, wow.
It's awesome to see so many districts represented, and I see some of our RESA partners represented. I love this collaboration. It's truly reaching across the state. This is great.
Yes, yes, definitely. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our call. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We have a jam-packed session for you, so we don't want to waste any time. We're going to start with the Cox Campus Way, and just give you a little background on our core values. As a reminder, we want this experience to be rewarding for all. We want to empower all to secure a better future for our children with regards to literacy. We are committed to connecting with other change agents. We all want to feel safe, welcome, and accepted. And we are rooted in solid research to help change practices and make a difference in the lives of children. So those are our core values, and we'll jump right into our session for today. If you are new to the Cox campus, and this is your first Knowledge Building Leaders session, please know that for this session, pre-work is required. To fully participate in this session, you will need to have completed the Systematic and Explicit Phonics Instruction course. If you have not completed that course, please consider joining our next session. The pre-work for that session is to complete reading fluency, and the date for that session is January 29th, 2024. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right, and we'd like you to meet the facilitators for today. We will bring your knowledge of foundational literacy through our online free Cox Campus structured literacy courses to set the foundation for transformative change in your school and or district. We will engage in reflective discussions with peer leaders that will be facilitated by the Rollins team, the Godot team, and the Deal Center. So today, your facilitators are Amy Denty from the Georgia Department of Education. She's the Director of Literacy. Ramona Brown, she is from the Rollins Center. She's a Field Implementation Coordinator. And myself, Jacinta McCants, and I am also with the Rollins Center Implementation Coach. So we're going to get started with an icebreaker today. In the chat, can you answer this question? What do you already know about phonics? So just any words that pop into your mind or any practices that you've seen in your buildings, anything with regards to phonics, what do you already know? All right, I see explicit, systematic. Ooh, it's jumping so fast. Foundational, explicit instruction, essential. Yes, it is essential. Foundation, one of the 5 pillars. Yes. Matching print, must have mastery. Phonemes and graphemes. Okay, we're getting deep. Decoding and encoding. Oh, I love it. Systematic approach. Assessment is vital. Yes, yes. Foundation of reading. Excellent. We are off to a great start. So it sounds like we are enjoying this pathway on phonics and are all engaged. I appreciate that. All right, just to do a phonics reset, I'm going to hand it over to our partner, Amy Denty, and she's going to go over really why we are doing this.
So it's great to see 133 participants on this Monday after probably a Thanksgiving break for everybody. I'm thankful that we continue to have so many people engaged with our knowledge building. And just as a reminder, we're here to do 3 things. We're here to learn together and to learn from each other, to truly engage as a network of leaders throughout our state as we begin to prepare for the change that has been brought about by House Bill 538 and the Georgia Early Literacy Act. It's exciting as you all were signing in to see literally people from all corners of our state and from school districts, RESAs, the Deal Center, the Rollins Center, Georgia Department of Education. And I think it is validating to see us all coming together for the greater good, for ensuring that our students have an opportunity to develop deep reading brains. So I will go through our session objectives today as well. Let's see. So, of course, this month we were completely focused on phonics, and hopefully you all had an opportunity to engage in the Cox Campus module on phonics. We're going to look at what this looks like when it's implemented as a school. Most of you who have been with us for several sessions now know that we try to keep a consistent process for these sessions. We'll link what we've learned to a real life scenario and give you all an opportunity to talk about what that might look like in your schools and how you would address it. And we'll also end with preparing you to lead the work in your school district by giving you a tool that will allow you to collect some baseline data. And I just want to say that in the interim between these, I've been so validated to talk to so many people in school districts who have really creative ways of taking this knowledge building for leaders and bridging it to the practice that is happening with your teachers and in your classrooms. And so hopefully today, when we're in breakout sessions, some of you will share that important work that you're doing as you lead this work in your schools and in your districts, because I know that there is a lot of great work going on. So we will get started.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Amy. We appreciate that. So definitely we are grounded in the why and making sure that our students are offered the best phonics instruction that we can provide for them. So we're going to get ready for a breakout session. And in this breakout session, you will have a moderator who's going to manage the Jamboard. And the Jamboard will basically reflect on what you see on the screen here. So reflect what you have learned in the course. You are going to share something that you found interesting in the course with your moderator. And then you're going to share a connection that you made to what you already knew about phonics or your experiences with phonics instruction. And then also you're going to share any lingering questions that you may still have after completing the course. So in the breakout sessions, in a few seconds, you'll be sent to a breakout room and you'll have a moderator who will guide you through these 3 areas and collect your thoughts. So if we are ready to go, we're going to jump into our first breakout session. Breakout room 1, I can share with you that the interesting facts that they pulled out of the course was the piece about myths and facts, and having that research behind the facts, so that they can have those lively discussions in PDs with their schools and their teachers, and really get to the root of what we should be doing based on facts and research, as opposed to the myths that we have been fooled to believe is true. And then one piece was also knowing when to move children from decodables into the content text. So that piece about learning to read and reading to learn, that shift. A lot of teachers are needing guidance to know when to make that shift from decodables. So that was an interesting piece that was brought out in our session. And that's fine. That's our interesting facts. Anyone else want to share theirs? Moderators?
I'll hop on and say that in group 3, one thing that came up over and over again were the resources in this course and how critical those resources are, and just knowing how many there are. In this course in particular, I would encourage, if y'all didn't check out the resource tab in the course itself, to go back and look at that, because there are a ton of them in there.
Excellent. Great advice. Great advice.
Sally, to that same point, we had a resource conversation, but a similar, or I guess a little bit of a different shift in how we can, even providing a good resource, teachers often feel the need to go and supplement, or to make it fluffy, or to make it cute. But really, without that understanding of the why, they don't understand why those things aren't necessary. So really being sure to give the teachers the training as well, so that they can be advocates and good selectors of resources.
Excellent. Yes, that's definitely needed. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Just
Okay,
said,
so go ahead.
I'm sorry. In group 2, a lot of people made connections between the Cox campus modules and other professional learning that they've been experiencing, which is great. And everybody talked about how that's very validating to learn the same strategies, the same best practices, the same research behind the why that they're seeing, and that's very validating. I thought another really important point was that while it's affirming to hear the same things, it also challenges us to think about what needs to be happening differently in our classrooms and in our districts to move us forward. And so it's great to be validated and challenged at the same time about what needs to happen next. And I think probably the tool that we share at the end will help with that.
Jacinta, I'd also like to add that group 11 brought up the point about being curriculum proof, and how, there are great curriculums, there are bad curriculums, and there are curriculums that are in between, and we need to know the knowledge so that we can, if 5 years from now, 10 years from now, things happen to whatever program or curriculum you were following, that you still have the knowledge to teach.
Great
I'd like
point.
to add, I'd like to add that room 5 had some great conversation about how valuable this knowledge is also for secondary teachers when filling in gaps. We most often think of your early elementary, but the morphology, the syllabication, the phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, all those things, how important it is to have that knowledge when you're working with struggling readers in the upper grades as well, to help fill in those gaps.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great point. Yes. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. Next, we're going to jump into a breakout room to have a discussion, and it's going to link to real life scenarios here. So again, this is more of a discussion instead of a Jamboard. So with this activity, there will not be a Jamboard, but here is your real life scenario. After a district collaboration meeting, principals report a trend they notice across the board during their walkthroughs. Many teachers are using sight word flashcards for memorization. What advice would you give your principals to help their teachers to include phoneme grapheme correspondence when teaching high frequency words? So in the breakout room, we would like you to discuss that scenario. We want to go ahead and jump into our next piece, which is our Marietta story. So we want to make sure we give ample time for Dr. Nick Philemon. I'm sorry, I can't say that right. Philemon.
Philemon, you're good. Yeah, it's almost like Philemon in the Bible, but minus one letter.
Gotcha. I know you is Nick, so.
Right.
All right.
So, yeah, we want to give him some time. He is going to share the Marietta story with us about 2 minutes. He guides the evidence-based literacy instruction, professional learning, and the curriculum development for Marietta City's elementary school. And as part of the district's foundational shift to structured literacy, he facilitated the collaboration among district departments, as well as between district leaders and vital external partners such as the Rollins Center, Learn for Life, Literacy How, and a 95% group. So we are very honored to have Nick with us today to share and give us some insight on the success that he's seen in his district with rolling out structured literacy and its whole ecosystem. So if you can give your attention to Dr. Nick Philemon, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jacinta. I could talk about our Marietta story for hours and hours. To be honest, I will not. And anybody who's ever been with me in any kind of large group talking setting knows that I could go on for days and days. To be honest, if nobody cut me off. But to thinking specifically about today's focus on phonics, I wanted to talk through 3 lenses, which are the assessment changes we made right out of the gate, repacing of our curriculum resources that we did, and then some really like fine, minute level changes we made to our actual programming itself. So thinking through those buckets, let me get to where I can see everybody. Yay, beautiful. So thinking through those buckets, the first thing that we took on in Marietta City, we took on this change in 2020, actually, right during when COVID started, which was fantastic. We got to learn how to teach on Zoom and how to teach phonics at almost exactly the same time, which, as you can imagine, was amazing. If you will open up the structured literacy assessment plan that we dropped in the chat, this is our most recent iteration of what we call our structured literacy assessment suite. Prior to taking on this training with the Rollins Center, we relied really heavily on FMP BAS system within our report cards, our report card rubrics. Everything was built around this leveling piece, which was really, really familiar. And one of the things that we did that I think has been a major focus of our success in Marietta is that we trained all of our admins, both district level and building level first, before we ever put any of this in front of coaches or teachers. And during that first summer, when we were learning all of this great instructional components, one of the things that kept coming up for us was when, of course, my first question was, like a lot of people's, well, when do I move from the decoding over to my level readers, right? So what letter? Once they reach F, does that mean that I stop doing decoding small group and then move over into guided reading small group? My knowledge has grown since then, and I understand that it's not that type of progression. But what that conversation did lead us to recognize was that if we were expecting instructional changes from our teachers, then we also had to make a massive shift in our assessment, because having teachers deliver phonics-based targeted small group instruction would not continue, and we would have led to really quick disengagement and burnout among the teachers if they then had to turn around and give a FMP BAS assessment and assign a letter to the kids. Those two things just don't align. So it was our first example of undertaking one of my new favorite terms from this entire undertaking, which is de-implementation. So literally in a matter of 2 months, we did away with our FMP assessment system, completely reconfigured our report cards, completely reconfigured our learning management system, our LMS, which is Aspen in Marietta City, and moved to what you see here, which is a suite of assessments, which are really targeted to each grade level. So kindergarten in the beginning and the middle of the year really focuses on letter name, letter sound, so that grapheme phoneme connection, and phonemic awareness, which we know is foundational for kindergartners. Eventually, at the end of the year, we add in IDI for them, which focuses on decoding mostly through that CVC lens. So we really target the assessment to when it's developmentally appropriate for the students. First grade, of course, should know or at least have been exposed to all of their letter name, letter sounds by the end of kindergarten. So we start IDI for them right at the beginning of the year. Also, the reason that we start spelling for them because they can already do those simple CVC words right off the bat. There's no oral reading fluency for first grade at the beginning of the year because it is not normed. We use Dibble's ORF and rely on Hasbrook and Tyndall's norming, and they don't norm first grade until mid of the year. So that's when we start it for them. Second through fifth grade, we essentially test everything. The only thing that's missing there is the phonemic awareness, and our teachers have the resources to use for older students if needed. But that's a sort of a tier 2 assessment for phonemic awareness. Once they hit second through fifth grade, we require all of these assessments up through third. And then once they reach fourth and fifth, they are optional as needed for students. We have far fewer students who would score in an at-risk level once they reach fourth and fifth grade. So it's not required for everybody. But I will say that of our 8 elementary schools, 6 of the 8 administer all of these assessments because they find the information they get from them really, really valuable. So that's kind of my first bucket. Second thing I wanted to discuss is, along with changing our assessments, we also repaced the phonics progression. We had benchmark phonics in place years, I think for 3 years before we actually took on this structured literacy shift. And of course, had really solid pacing for that. Our teachers are very used to the resources. However, even before taking on this training, they had also recognized that the teaching inside of the benchmark lessons did not completely align with the training that we were getting from Top 10 Tools and from Rollins Center. So we went in and repaced kindergarten is the most obvious and glaring change that we made. You can't see what it was before, but I'll fill you in really quick. Prior to this shift, if anybody is knowledgeable about benchmark phonics and their kindergarten scope and sequence, they spend the first 25 weeks of the year essentially learning just the letter name before they ever 25 days. They learn the letter names before they ever attach any letter sounds to it. So it was literally early January, before they really even moved over to learning all their letter sounds, or before they even started. So we now repaced our scope and sequence to introduce the letter name and the letter sound at the same time. So every one of those weeks where you see MM and AA, they're learning how to write those letters, how to recognize them, and how to actually pronounce them, which means that right out of the gate, they can start decoding words by August, which in the past, kindergarten would actually not be until October 25th, according to our 2019-2020 pacing. They could not even start doing any CVC decoding until late October because they hadn't been taught explicitly any of the letter sounds. And I mean, any at all. So even that sound of A and M together didn't happen until the end of October. So that let us, number one, start doing some earlier decoding work, but it also let us move them on. If you look at that Q4, that March through May period, it let us move them on more quickly to some of those more advanced, still essentially a CVC kind of window because the digraphs are just one sound. So, but it let us expose them to those skills so that now they were more set up for that work in first grade. We did essentially all of that same work in kindergarten, first and second grade. By first grade, they are adding in those more advanced skills, but still a single syllable place, so that by second grade, they have literally learned every common grapheme phoneme connection in the English language in one syllable words and can immediately start focusing on all of those same skills inside of 2 syllable words. This document itself was also brand new. In the past, each of our grade levels had similar documents like this, but we had never mapped it all together. And this past year was when we actually mapped 4th and 5th grades pacing also. Theirs is more morphology and word study than phonics specific, of course. But we did that so that all of our teachers, both homeroom and support teachers, have access to the full range of what our kindergarten through 5th grade students learn, so that anybody who needs to be accelerated can be, anybody who needs to be remediated can be, so that everybody's kind of on the same track. Last bucket I want to talk about is Benchmark itself. And Rebecca dropped the kindergarten phonics pacing guide. A few things that I wanted to point out at the top. Would it be easier for y'all if I share my screen? Okay, I'm gonna do that real quick. Okay, perfect. All right. So this kindergarten phonics pacing guide, we have one of these for every grade level. I'll use kindergartens as an example. If you look, I'm gonna kind of go backwards really quickly. Down at the bottom, you can see where that repacing work was done. We still do start off the year with basic handwriting because they will still need all of these. But immediately as of August 22nd, 21st, this week right here, you can start seeing how we loop together the review lessons, which is just identify and form the letter A from benchmark, with this unit 1 and 2, which happens 45 lessons later. Technically, the way benchmark is written, we've now brought the sound symbol lessons right up to the identify and form lessons, which means that as of August 25th, they can start both reading and writing words like am, Sam, sat, right? They can get there much, much quicker. Thinking about that scenario with the phoneme grapheme connections inside of high frequency words, we remapped all of the Dolch words by frequency is the list we use for high frequency. We mapped them onto whatever skill the students were learning at that time of the year. So instead of just going 1 through 220, we arranged them by the skills that the kids currently know and provided our teachers with really specific guidance on this T right here. The students already know the T into. What they don't know is the oo into, and that's a red part. That's a red heart part of that word, because O is always going to be extremely rare, making that oo sound, whereas that TH making the th sound, the students just don't know it yet. So that's why it's yellow for our teachers, right? So it's a yellow part of the word. The students will eventually know it. Another thing that repacing let us do was bring up more of these phonemic awareness skills instead of just rhyming. So you see there is some rhyming work, but there's also word discrimination, initial sound, long versus short words, blending onset and rhymes. Before a lot of this work was undertaken here, rhyming was a really big focus. And in fact, many of our kindergarten students would spend weeks in just a small rhyming intervention group. What we have learned now, from a know better, do better standpoint, is that rhyming is more of a on-ramp skill rather than an endpoint skill. So it's good from assessment standpoint. And teaching nursery rhymes and rhyme is still valid, but we don't want to spend months with kids sitting for 30 minutes a day just learning how to rhyme. And repacing this for our teachers really help kind of drive that home for them. Last thing I want to show, and then I'm going to stop talking, is up at the top. We have provided our teachers essentially a landing place for all the things that have to do with phonics instruction. That was a big feedback from our teachers, was all this knowledge is great and all these resources are great, but I have to go 75 different places to find it. Can you give it to me all in one place? Which is essentially what this top part of our pacing guide now does, is the scope and sequence that you all saw, the high frequency words, progress monitoring, which we do use Cox Campus for that, how they do their letter formation. And then this is the last thing I'll mention, which is my pride and joy of this year. We created a crosswalk of all the phonics related resources that we have in Marietta City. So the tier 1 pacing, which benchmark lesson it supports, because remember, we don't do them in order anymore. Which UFly lesson, all of our kindergarten through 3rd grade teachers have the UFly manual, so it tells them that. All of our K2 classrooms have sound walls from Tools for Reading as a resource that we used, which Sound Wall Solutions lesson supports that. And our next big undertaking down in the upper grades is mapping that over to morphology as well. Stop sharing. And I think I may have hit somewhere close to 10 minutes.
Yep,
Probably the
you
closest
hit
I
it.
ever have.
You hit it on the mark. Thank you
there.
so much, Nick. All right, if we could go back to the main PowerPoint, I'd ask for everyone to drop questions that they may have for you, Nick. Thank you for graciously hosting this conversation around Marietta's story. So a couple of questions are, who helped create these awesome documents? Was there a district team?
Yes, so a lot of this was done in collaboration with our Rollins K3 field implementation coordinator, Justin Browning. He was a big part of the steering committee here. We do have a team of what we call science of reading facilitators who work at the district level and provide PD across multiple schools. I will say that a good bit of this also, though, involved our coaches. We are blessed in Marietta City to have a literacy coach in every elementary building. And a big part of their time with us once a month is work session work. And a lot of this got accomplished through them as well. So many hands made light work, but I would say that myself from a coordinator lens and Justin from the Rollins partner lens really drove this work, but it was our facilitators and coaches who actually did a good bit of it.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
You mentioned once a month they come together. About how much time? Because that's always the question for leaders. How much time is required to accomplish something like this?
So this is a part of the work that happens we have them one full day a month as a work session. All the coaches come together, and that's K-12, not just the K-5 literacy coaches. Our coaches come together one full Friday a month as a work session, and another full Friday every month they come together for coaching PD. We used to try to accomplish that in a single day, and both things got shortcutted. Y'all know which one got shortcutted the most. It was the PD part, right? Because we have deliverables that have to be delivered. So now they have what we call coaching pathway days and work sessions.
Excellent, thank you. The next question from Elisa Tipton is, what curriculum do you use?
From a phonics standpoint, we still use Benchmark. However, Benchmark has largely become a resource and a source of materials more so than a guidance for the instruction itself. We have applied every bit of what we have learned through Top 10 Tools and Cox Campus at this point to reconfigure the lessons inside of Benchmark to actually align better with evidence-based practices. We do still have it though. And then all of our teachers have UFly. They have the UFly Foundations Manual, kindergarten through third grade in that phonics space. Those are really the two programs that we use.
Excellent. Thank you for lifting the fact that the way that it's used is as a resource, because one thing that's really powerful about this work is our mission is to make teachers smarter than any curriculum. And so if we give them that background knowledge of the why and guide them to the how, then even though publishers are slow to catch up with the resource, our teachers will remain a step ahead, as well as our students. Let me see if there were any other questions. There's a lot of love in the chat for you.
Hey.
Back to Benchmark, someone asked, are you using the copyright of 2016?
Yes, we are using, because we had started this adoption prior to, we are actually currently in the process of we're in the middle of the RFP process for a core reading program. We in Marietta City have not had a core comprehension reading program since I've been here in 2014. We had, I think, Harcourt Basel many years ago before I came on board. We are deciding right now, as a part of that core reading program adoption, we want to see how companies address phonics and if the company has phonics as a part of their larger suite of programs, then we obviously would look at going that direction. Is the reason that we have, I saw somebody asked about the updates based on Y11's work. That's why we haven't made that switch, is that we didn't want to go from essentially a subpar benchmark to a better benchmark, but then 2 years later, go to a different phonics piece that's a part of a larger comprehensive program.
Excellent. And a major question here that comes up a lot is, how did you overcome a resistance to restructuring assessments, specifically overhauling the use of F&P?
Okay, so two-part answer. Number one, it was really easy to show people the amount of time it took to actually do the due diligence of finding all 3 F&P levels versus this new suite. It literally cut down the time for student by 20%. So giving back instructional time was a major win for us, which let it happen pretty quickly. It was great. Anybody who works with teachers knows, though, that once October hit and it was time for parent conferences, that resistance flared right back up, because now what do I tell a parent? I can't tell them that their kid's an F and they should be a J. So what do I tell them instead? So we had to do some really specific targeted professional development on how to talk to parents about the different results for each of those assessments. And again, kind of like I was saying in my small group earlier, that it's about mapping over this new knowledge and process over to what's already known for the teachers. So using Hasbro and Tyndall's norms feels a lot like using the leveling from F&P. It's just more targeted. So the conversation still feels familiar and normal to teachers. They just had to learn a different content for that conversation. So I think those two things were our biggest wins: the time saved and really specific PD on how to talk to parents about the assessments.
Absolutely. So being able to name the positives of it and provide support where teachers needed it. Love it. Let's see. There are a couple more questions for you.
The last thing I would say, and I know I started off with this, but I think our biggest win right out of the gate was the fact that we did redo things from a district level. We redid the report card rubrics before we ever even put this change in front of teachers from a knowledge-based standpoint. So they knew that they weren't being asked to teach in a way that they weren't also being asked to assess. I think that was an early win for us. And one of the quickest shifts I had ever seen. I've worked in 6 different school districts in my 19 years, and I have never seen district level people make a change that fast. It really showed us that we were invested as a district.
Yes, that definitely shows commitment, because report cards and grades are a sensitive subject, both within the school environment as well as in the community, getting parents to understand that component. So another question from Jackie is, Jackie Tyre, why have you decided not to assess for comprehension in the upper grades? Maybe you have another tool in a different assessment period?
So we don't have comprehension as a part of our structured literacy assessment suite because of the extremely high correlation from Dibble's ORF over to the ability to comprehend a passage. It's something like a 0.92. Justin would know this exact number. That's not me, not a memory guy. But it's a really, really high correlation that if you are at that 50th percentile of being able to have that ORF piece, then you are highly likely to also be able to comprehend. We do in the upper grades have more, I want to think of the right word, classroom level, student level assessments that are given for comprehension, that we really talk about 3 types of assessments within comprehension. There's cold reads, warm reads, and hot reads, essentially, is the way that I like to think about them. That hot read is a passage that they have been using for comprehension instruction, and now they're just going to be asked to do something different with it, like respond with a constructive response, or in some way use a passage that they already know and have been using. A warm read is a passage that lives inside the same knowledge bucket that they've been learning about for that week or set of 2 weeks, but it's a passage they haven't seen before, and they're asked to respond to it. And then a cold read, which is the most rare, and by and large, a lot of our teachers have even stopped doing them altogether, is a lexiled passage for the grade level that is disconnected from the knowledge that's currently being built. It's a process, I feel like some of our teachers still want to do that. Are they able to apply the comprehension strategy when they don't know the knowledge piece? Our knowledge building PD, though, has largely been based in Natalie Wexler's work, and we really try to keep our assessment pieces even within that same vein. Of course, fourth and fifth grade teachers push back that milestone doesn't necessarily test them on exactly those same buckets of knowledge. So in the background, that is something I'm doing as well, is sort of pushing on my lovely contacts at DOE whenever we come together for our RESA meetings as ELA coordinators to see if we can align those passages over with the social studies and science content that's expected at that same grade level.
Nick,
Awesome.
I had that conversation with our assessment partners at DOE the other day, and actually most of the ELA passages are aligned to the topic areas
Beautiful.
from science and social studies. Children are not necessarily expected to come with that, but they have actually done that alignment, which is awesome. I was
It
thrilled
is
to
awesome.
learn that.
Yeah, that really gives us a playing card for those fourth and fifth grade teachers, even from the knowledge building standpoint, right? Because that's been another, I know that's another one of these sessions later on, is that like the knowledge content building part of it, but that's majorly helpful.
Awesome. There are a couple more questions that I will forward to you, Nick.
Sure.
We want to take a few minutes to review the tools that accompany the learning that we've done. If we'll go, yeah. So we always like to wrap up our session with a call to action. And so we're going to give you about 6 minutes in a breakout room to take a look at the coaching tool for Explicit Phonics, as well as the course guide that accompanies it. And your call to action will be to collect data using the coaching tool and to use the coaching guide to support the transfer of knowledge to practice. So we're going to go into breakout rooms for about 6 minutes and then give you a chance to review those resources. When you come back, any questions that you have around those tools, we will take a few minutes to answer those before we wrap up. All right, as folks are coming back, if there were anything that we did not get to share around the discussion about the scenarios before we heard from Nick, now would be a great time to do that. I will start off. I was in room number 10, and some important advice that they would give is using flashcards after mapping the words as a way to not make a teacher feel like something is being taken away from them, but instead showing them a more effective way to use a tool or technique. And then the other thing was the importance of the why, and 2 ways to highlight that is using the reading ladder about what percentage of students may have learned their sight words, learn to read their sight words by flashcards or memorization. And then also highlighting what percentage of the words are actually decodable, and then using that in combination with a sound wall when you introduce a sound, making sure that you include those words. Sally said, great conversation in group 3 and group 11. Thanks. Yes. Rich conversation. Group 4, awesome. Thank you, team. So if we can go to the very last screen, and while we're doing that, if there are any questions that you have before you take the call to action into your context. Go back one more screen.
Ramona, while Sam's going back, I have a question for next time that some people have asked. The schedule says reading fluency and RTI. Do our participants need to do the modules in Cox Campus for both reading fluency and response to intervention?
Yes, that would be, we would just follow the courses that are on the schedule.
Okay. It's about the same amount of time because that, like clock hours, because the response to intervention is a little bit shorter than some we've done.
Yes. Yeah. That's why we combined them. So Sam, are you going to launch the webinar poll? Thanks. All right. So if you'll go ahead and participate in the poll. And the last screen is simply reiterating that it's the reading fluency and the RTI course. And our next session is on January 29th.
Ramona, we also had a few questions in room 5 real quick. Sorry, just real quick.
Go ahead.
They loved the course guide for this phonics module and was asking whether there were course guides for the other 2 modules that they'd completed and if they could get access to that, or if they're on the website that they can go and look at. And then the second question was about the coaching tool. We had a few that didn't participate in the first one and would like the coaching tools from those sessions that, again, we previously had, and I didn't know if there was a way to get them that information as well.
Absolutely. We can do that. There definitely is one for the oral language course that we took. I'm going to ask for help from my content team so that I don't
I'm looking at the links now. I'm looking at the links now, and I'll try to drop them all in the chat. And we can also include these in the email, the follow-up email.
Yes. Thank you, Sally. Appreciate you.
And I just want to make a point that the course guides for the January courses, we can also put those in a follow-up email as well.
Yes. Awesome. All right. So we just want to thank you once again. We look forward to seeing you at our next session, which is on January the 29th, 2024. That sounds wild. But that's when we'll be touching base with you all again. Don't forget to join us on all of our social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. And we look forward to seeing you all at the next session.
And before we hop off, Amy, there's a message in the chat that I think you would be the best person to answer about having the courses put up into Georgia Learns.
Yes, I was just typing that. Amanda asked when these next 2 will be in Georgia Learns. Where the Godot technology team is working furiously to get those in, and so hopefully we can have those in the next couple of weeks. We'll certainly prioritize reading fluency and RTI since those are our next 2 for knowledge building.
And Nick had a shout out to the teacher in his background photo who was teaching her phonics lesson right in front of her sound wall. I did notice that, Nick. I noticed the vowel valley. So awesome representation of putting the knowledge to practice. All right. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate your engagement. Special thanks to Dr. Nick Philman for joining us and sharing the Marietta story. We look forward to having you again with us in the near future.
Happy to do it. Thanks for including me.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
Have a great week, everyone.